Hi there, folks. Sty North here. This is going to be a little, I don't know, is it off topic or what it'll be, but this is, I had some friends and family members ask me if I could do a series on just who I am and tell some of the stories of my past, some of the things I've experienced over the years. So I thought I'd do a small series. I'm going to, some of it's going to be loaded with outdoor lore. It's all going to be, for the most part, all outdoor related. And maybe you'll be able to glean some helpful information from these stories. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little series called Sty Stories. And I'm just going to reminisce a little bit about my past and the things I've experienced and my background, where I've come from, what makes Sty Sty. I guess I'm going to just put myself out there and share myself with the world, and my friends and family that wanted me to do somewhat of a video history a little bit and share some of my experiences with others should be happy with it. So, welcome to my Sty Stories series, and I guess I'll start out, this being the first video in the series. Where should I start? Well, where did Sty come from? Well, I was told for many years that the stork brought me, but I'm not buying it. The fact of the matter is I was born and raised in Minnesota. I learned most of my outdoor skills and my outdoor background began as a child. My father was very outdoors minded. His father, my grandfather, Docky, odd name, isn't it? Docky. They called him Docky all the time. His proper name was Doctor. That's back in the days when you named your child what you hoped they grow up to be. And so they named him Doctor, and he just assumed the name Docky because the last thing he wanted to be was a doctor. That old fella, he was born, I believe he was born actually here in the state of Wisconsin, down in west central Wisconsin. And he had an unusual life. His father was a colonel in the Minnesota Cavalry back in the 1800s, late 1800s. And my grandfather was taken in by his uncle and aunt in Yellow River, Wisconsin, when he was quite young. He was like 5-6 years old when they took him in. And when he was about 8 years old, from what I understand, he was about 8 years old. The Minneapolis Star and Tribune did a long article on him back in the 60s, and I've been trying to get a copy of that, and I haven't had any luck yet, but I'm going to get a copy of it someday. He wanted to be with his father, and his father was based up in Garrison, Minnesota, that area along Lake Mille Lacs. And my grandfather, just as a young boy, was determined to meet up with his father. So the Native Americans of the Mille Lacs region, known now as, I think they're the Mille Lacs tribe of Chippewa Indians, Ojibways, were in southern Wisconsin, and it had to do with some treaty talks. And there was several members, elders of the tribe that had been at those treaty talks. Well, when they came through Yellow River, Wisconsin on their way back home to Lake Mille Lacs, my grandfather happened across them, and he convinced them. Now, mind you, if that happened today, oh boy, there'd be somebody be paying heck for it. He convinced them to take him with them to Lake Mille Lacs to find his father. So he ran away. I think it was 7 or 8 years old. He ran away with these Native Americans up to Lake Mille Lacs. He arrived on the southern shores of Lake Mille Lacs, which is now Father Hennepin State Park. At that time, it was property that the tribes had ceded to the federal government. And he went and he found his father. He was his estranged father. His father did not want to take him in. So he lived with the Native Americans until he was about the age of 13, learning their ways, and they were really roughing it back then. So he learned a lot of his outdoor skills right from the Mille Lacs Lake natives. And at about the age of 13, he approached his father again, and his father took him in. And then he was with his father until he came of age. And then when he left his father to go out on his own, he went to St. Paul, Minnesota, and went to school to become a boiler maker. And the reason he did that was because he wanted to start a sawmill. And the big boilers they used to run the sawmills, you needed a Boilermaker to operate them. So he wanted to have his Boilermaker license so that he could operate his own sawmill without hiring somebody. Then he relocated back to the Mille Lacs area, and he logged along Lake Mille Lacs for years and had a large mill there. And then from there he moved to Virginia, Minnesota, and all this time he lived right next to the outdoors. I mean, he was as in the outdoors as he could get and still be somewhat industrial. His logging camps were very rustic, very basic. When he moved to Virginia, Minnesota, he went to work, I guess, for the open pit mines and other logging mills, tending their boilers, and then eventually relocated back to the Twin Cities, where I think my father was born in Virginia, Minnesota, and then they moved to the Twin Cities. My father, he was a chief of police of a small town in a western community, west of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And he was the first chief of police and last chief of police of a small community. So I was raised by a police officer, so pretty strict upbringing. But I had the fortune to have my grandfather and my father both highly skilled in outdoor skills. Now, I had never even heard the term bushcrafting until I was in my 40s. Back then, it was just outdoor skills, knowing how to get by in the bush. Well, I learned most of my skills from my grandfather, hands-on, up until about the age of 10. And along with that, my father we spent every summer in the Boundary Waters canoe area, and we spent as much time in the woods, in the outdoors, as possible. My father just encouraged it. He loved the outdoors. My father worked in the CC camps, helped build the Gunflint Trail in northern Minnesota back during the war period, during World War II. So I came from a very outdoorsy background, a family that loves the outdoors. I'm the youngest of 4 children in the family. My eldest sister and my brother have passed away. God bless both of them. My brother loved the outdoors. And I still have one sister left. Love her to death. She loves the outdoors, but she doesn't like to rough it. Don't blame her. If you don't have to, and it's not in your heart, then you don't want to go there. But that's Sty. That's where Sty comes from. That's what made Sty what Sty became. So that I'm going to end this video with that. So that's where I came from. Nothing fancy, not a lot of bells and whistles. But what I'll get into in my next few videos on Sty Stories is some of the things that happened, I'll say from 1969 forward. My father passed away in 1969, and I was 12 years old. And from that point forward, I had to grow up in a hurry, and I experienced an awful lot of things outdoor related, just because that helps me remember the good times with my grandfather and my father. So in the future Sty Stories, you're going to hear a lot more, some real interesting, some kind of unusual things that Sty's been through. So I hope you enjoyed it. Watch for the next one. And I don't know how many of these I'm going to do, but this is what you do on a cold winter day when you're stuck in your, well, as we call it, the Sty Shack. So why not? I'll do some Sty Stories over the winter. And we'll see you on the next one. You all have a nice day.